Welcome to K-Drama School. I'm your host, Grace Jung, and class is now in session. Something about my life. I have decided to stop eating meat again. There was a very brief period in my life where I stopped eating meat, but I guess I'm gonna stop eating meat again. And in order to motivate myself to stop eating meat, I watched a documentary on Netflix to kind of like ruin meat for me. Personally, I don't really give a shit about like the ethics of like animal cruelty and this and that. Like I do, but I don't care to the extent of like the way PETA does and like throwing blood on people. I don't like call up meat suppliers and like yell at them over the phone. Like I'm not that extent of commitment to anti-meat kind of thing. For me, like eating meat just makes me super congested, and that is why I am taking a break from meat. But I watched this documentary, What the Health, and it's like a vegan documentary. Joaquin Phoenix executive produced it, and he's very much a vegan. And it's like making an argument, a case for vegan living. But personally, I don't think going completely vegan is right for everybody. There are definitely some bodily constitutions that require animal protein, and without it, they become like extremely ill. There are bodies like that, but I am not that body type. My body type just happens to be one that thrives on a pescatarian diet. So I'm just not eating meat. That does not mean that I'm gonna stop eating fish and seafood, even though like fish and seafood also, like mercury and like the way that some fish are farmed and have diseases and blah, 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 all that stuff is like a big headache too. But anyway, I'm still down with fish. So yeah, I'm doing this whole pescatarian thing, and I didn't do this like all summer, but I actually really enjoy a really good salad, like a big salad. And if you guys don't follow her, I recommend that you do. Baked by Melissa. Melissa, I forget her last name, but she's the CEO of Baked by Melissa, which is like this mini cupcakes franchise. Like it started, I think, in New York, and now it's like all over the globe, I believe. But she's like this badass CEO of these tiny little miniature cupcake bites, and she has a really great sense of color, and a lot of her like cupcakes have like rainbow colors and stuff. But she makes the most incredible salads, and I see them on her TikToks, and I'm like, yeah, I need to make these salads. So I bought a bunch of vegetables today, and then I went to Whole Foods and I got like a really good mustard, and I got some like vegan mayo. I like mayonnaise, actually. I think mayonnaise is like an amazing dressing. So I got mayo, but it's vegan mayo. I got this sugar-free ketchup. Like I love ketchup, but ketchup is full of sugar. Like they have like high fructose corn syrup in most ketchups, like Heinz and Hunt's and things like that. And that's kind of what makes ketchup taste amazing. That plus the fact that tomatoes are full of MSG, like naturally occurring MSG, which makes it more addictive. But in any case, I got this sugar-free ketchup from Whole Foods, and I'm really excited to use my new sauces, man. Like, what can I say? So yeah, I'm gonna try this thing out. And for the last, I would say 2-3 weeks now, I've been doing yoga more intensely, and I feel better. Like yoga is a really interesting way of physical meditation. And meditation for me sometimes can get super boring, and when it's too boring, like I'll find reasons to skip it, because I'm like, oh, I'm too tired. But it's actually because it's boring. And part of it is like you got to get through the boredom and whatnot. But there are other ways to be physically physically mobile and active and meditate. So like, you know, when I go on walks, I try to be mindful. When I'm doing yoga, I'm of course mindful. It's like a mindful form of exercise. And it's like kicking my ass, you know, it really improves your like strength and your muscles. And that's also the reason why I'm giving up dairy right now. It's not only because it's similar to meat, it makes me super congested, but also like it builds lactic acid in my muscles. And I can't stand in certain positions for too long, or I can't do certain moves for too long because I'll feel my joints like aching and cramp up because of the lactic acid buildup. Something I just learned in high school biology. It's nothing, you know, it's no big deal. Yeah, I took a bunch of PSAT biology courses when I was in high school. Actually, I took like 3 or 4 of those, and I still did not get a high, you know, biology PSAT score. In any case, yeah. So what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about a show called Another Miss O. It's written by Park Hae-young. This show, Another Miss O, it's also called Another Oh Hae-young. Yeah, so it's got 2 titles. But Park Hae-young is the writer of a couple of very big hits, including My Mister. She also wrote My Liberation Notes. Both shows are probably in my top 5 favorite K-dramas of all time. And this show stars actress Seo Hyun-jin and K-pop star Eric Moon. Now, Eric Moon used to be in, well, he's still in it. The thing is, like, the boy band that he's in, Shinhwa, it's like one of SM's earlier first generation K-pop boy bands, and they are still technically active and together. Of course, the majority of them moved on, and they do a lot of variety shows now, like, you know, some of them like act in TV shows and movies like Eric does, and a bunch of them have solo albums and solo careers. But the band itself is technically still together, and there is still a Shinhwa K-pop band following that's very active and present in the K-media ecosystem, so to speak. So yeah, I was like, wow, like this is definitely like a nostalgic moment, you know, like Eric Moon from Shinhwa. One quick thing about this show, I did not think that Seo Hyun-jin and Eric Moon had good chemistry. I think Seo Hyun-jin's a very good actress. I don't think Eric Moon is a very good actor. Seo Hyun-jin, I could see her really trying. I could see her trying really hard to make it work, but I just felt like Eric's character was a little too serious. Like, he was just way too serious, and she was like weird and zany and vulnerable, like super vulnerable. In fact, she reminds me a lot, like, okay, let's back up a little bit. First of all, let's talk about Another Miss O's ratings, okay? Extremely successful while it was airing. It was so successful back in 2016 that it was supposed to end with 16 episodes, but then they added 2 more episodes and made it 18 episodes. So they stretched the show out because it was doing so well, and advertisement spots, you know, they were making, the network was making money, TVN was making money, so they extended it 2 more episodes, which I felt like was superfluous. Because I was like, I don't think the storyline needs 2 more episodes, but they had to stretch it out, you know, to make more money. I don't blame them, but I'm just saying it did hurt the show's quality overall. I didn't, like, for me, this show came out 6 years ago, but I feel like over the last 6 years, K-dramas, even rom-coms, have drastically changed. Like, I can't watch just a K-drama that's focused on the romance of 2 characters anymore. It's like super boring. It feels petty in a way. And it's exhausting, you know, like it's like watching like Full House. Like Full House, the couple breaks up, they get back together, they fight, they yell at each other, one of them moves out, the other one moves out, they move back in, they say sorry. I was just like, this is so exhausting. And that's kind of what was going on in Another Miss O. There was a lot of fighting, you know, and they're like in the same, you know, living quarters together. That's like a very like standard rom-com sort of formulaic thing, but I was like, this doesn't work anymore. It's like way too boring now because K-dramas have evolved drastically in the last 6 years, and like their storylines are a lot more complex, and thematically the romance, just if you have just the romance, like that storyline does not hang anymore. You have to have some other big element in there. That's the only way it works. So Another Miss O, when I was watching it, I was like, this feels dated. It feels dated even though it's only 6 years, ago when it aired. Park Hae-young, who wrote this show, another Oh Hae-young. First of all, I thought it was ballsy of her to use her own first name as the protagonist's name. I was like, wow, that's Hae-young. Like, this is her. This is her alter ego, like, on the screen. I thought it was like it was ballsy and bold and vulnerable, yeah, for her to do that. Park Hae-young wrote My Mister and My Liberation Notes, both of which have a way more different tone. Like, tonally, they're very, very different. Tonally, those two shows are a little bit more noir. They're a little bit more serious, slice of life, realism heavy, and Another Miss O has like a definite fantasy element because is it Park Do-kyung? Do-kyung, the guy Eric Moon plays. He is a clairvoyant and he could see the future of him and Hae-young's relationships together. And I was like, okay, like, I guess that's sort of the gimmicky weirdness of this show, but still, I was just like, I don't see how all of this aligns. But that fantasy element, that it's got like a spiritual sort of meaning behind it, like understanding that the soul sort of kind of, how do I put this? It's like a belief in reincarnation in a way. It's like the soul sort of traverses like all these different lifetimes, and therefore time itself, like past and present and future, they're all like one big bar, and it doesn't really have these differentiations. Like, that's a very spiritual sort of consciousness that's speaking, and that to me was unique to Park Hae-young, the writer of this show. And that quality is consistent in all three of her shows. You see that spiritual sort of woohoo belief in reincarnation, spirituality. You see that in My Mister. You also see it in My Liberation Notes. So I appreciated that. I also saw consistency with Another Miss O, My Mister, and My Liberation Notes in that the father figure in all three of these shows are either completely passive or just completely missing. So in Another Miss O, the father figure is like very passive. The mother is very active. The mother and the daughter are constantly clashing. The father is just kind of standing in the background, like backdrop, not really contributing much, not saying much, not doing much, just kind of going with whatever the mother dictates. And then in My Mister, the father figure for those three siblings he's like completely out of the picture. Like, people barely mention him, right? Also, like, IU's character's father is also dead. So the father figure is like dead, missing, right? In that show. And then in My Liberation Notes, you have a father figure, the three siblings' dad, but he's also very quiet, very reticent. He doesn't say anything unless he's pushed to lose his temper. That's the only time he speaks up. And even when he speaks up, then it's very like compact, right? Like he says words like poems, basically, like sonnets, like delivers them in a very compact, efficient way, but with a lot of meaning behind it. But for the most part, pretty passive, like, and he's like in conflict with all of the characters in his household, right? So the father figure issue is consistent in all three of Park Hae-young's shows. There's also the theme of three siblings in all three of the shows. So Park Hae-young, right? Her boyfriend Do-kyung, he has three siblings. He has a younger brother and older sister, right? And then in My Mister, you have the three brothers, right? And then in My Liberation Notes, of course, you have the two sisters and then the brother in the middle. So you have these like three, like rule of threes thing kind of going. And then these three characters all have like a saint-like quality to them, and they all have flaws as well. They have their life's challenges, and all three of the shows do dedicate ample time to draw out a storyline and character development for all three of the siblings. So I thought that was quite fascinating. I believe Park Hae-young grew up with siblings in her household, if not a big family, because otherwise, why would this be a consistent thing, right? Our lives do influence our work. So there you go. The thing that I wanted to say earlier was about the characters Soo-kyung. Soo-kyung and Park Hae-young. Soo-kyung is Park Hae-young's, Oh Hae-young. I'm mixing them up. So Oh Hae-young, the character, Soo-young is Oh Hae-young's boss, right? She's like this woman who is in her 40s. She has like big hair, big personality, like big accessories, dresses really in a flashy way, and she's like this hardcore badass woman that everybody's terrified of, right? And she loves alcohol, and she's like really insecure about the fact that she's older now and she feels invisible and unwanted, but like she's open about it. She's open about it, and she's like she's she reminds me a lot of Haeyoung's character too. Like Haeyoung is just as open and vulnerable, and um she's like brazenly honest about how she feels screwed over by love and romance. And you see that quality also in My Mister, with the character Chung-hee, the woman who runs that bar, right? She's also this like woman who's desperate for love. She wants love. She wants love from a specific man, but that man happens to be a Buddhist monk, so he can never love her like that. And it's like this pining, this endless pining for love and romance that these women have. And it's like, it's just there, very bare and open. And yeah, like for me, that's it's like uncomfortable to watch, but that discomfort also helps me appreciate it because it's like an honesty. There's an honesty behind it, right? Like, what person doesn't want to be loved? We all want to be loved. And these characters, these female characters, are just like angry, They're angry and they're vocal about it. They're like, I want love. I want to be loved. And they demand it. And you have that character, of course, in My Liberation Notes, the oldest sister, right? She's like pushing 40 and she feels so invisible to men and she feels so undesirable, and she's trying very hard and she wants to be in love, but she's struggling to find love. And even when she does find love, there are all these challenges, right? So yeah, Park Hae-young is like a very bold writer through and through. So that was the thing I wanted to mention earlier, but I needed to do some groundwork beforehand. Okay, so I think that's a pretty good assessment of the show. Yeah, let's end it there. The guest for this episode is Bruce Peck, and I met Bruce on set. He and I were scene partners for a TV show that I shot, and I believe it's going to be airing sometime early next year. Bruce is he's an actor. You've seen him in shows like The Flight Attendant, probably on HBO. Bruce is originally from New York. Well, he's actually from New Jersey, and so Bruce and I connected on a lot of levels because I also lived in New Jersey briefly. So, but I also lived in New York, so Bruce and I had a lot to talk about in that regard. And he was just like a fun scene partner, very professional, and yeah, like a fun guy to chat with. So let's talk to Bruce Beck.
Yeah, yeah, we're on a break.
Ah, summer break.
Yes, I'm a break.
Right on.
So, what
So then
about
what
you?
what do you do? What do you do all day then if you're on summer break?
Oh, I'm working on a project right now.
Oh, great. It's
Yeah,
TV,
so
movie.
TV. Yeah, hopefully you'll have
Nice.
more details soon.
Great.
So yeah, TV's
That's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah, not
It
much
is fun.
money.
Huh?
Yeah, not much money, but it's fun.
Really? For television
Yeah,
it's not?
yeah, I gotta do more. I gotta do more movies, but
Oh yeah.
that's
Movies pay
someday.
more?
So just about, but the exposure wise, it's. But these days, there's so many streaming services and all that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but work is work.
For
You know,
work is work. That's true.
work is work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. I personally I don't really like auditioning. And
yeah.
it's like it's so much work. I mean, like how do you keep like a mental sort of head for that to just like do it, you know? Because I sometimes I feel so lazy.
I mean, for me, it's now starting to been a little while being a professional actor, right? And at some point, I really hated auditions because I just didn't know how to tackle
Mhm.
in the first place,
Mhm.
even though I took some classes and all that. But
Mhm.
um, one of the one of the mentors who was working industry for a very long time.
Mhm.
This person told me one day she just said, if you approach the audition as if already a job that you already got,
Mm.
and you're just rehearsing it,
Mm.
if you have them, and I know it's realistically it's almost impossible to separate between, hey, it's the
Mhm.
job that I might not even get it. Don't go there.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
You're getting an opportunity to show your craft in front of the casting professionals. It is your
Yeah.
time for you to show them, hey, this is my take, this is my interpretation of the character,
Mm.
and this is how I would do it on set
Mm.
if it's my character. So
Mhm.
here it is. You like it, we move on to next step, whatever. If
Mhm.
you don't like it, that's not what you think it is, then you know what? Better luck next time. Not for me, but better luck next time for you
Mm.
because have that confidence in you. She
Mm.
said it's gonna sort of change your perspectives on auditions, and that really helped
Mm.
me a lot.
Yeah.
And there is a, if you Google YouTube, Brian Creston, I think he did
Mhm.
some sort of interview in
Mhm.
front of so many people. He said similar thing when he changed the perception of the audition as instead of being a job, I am actually going to work.
Yeah.
Self-taping is a work. Going
Yeah.
to casting offices is a work. And he
Right.
thought that, and then whole perspective changes. So for me,
Yeah.
I still don't get me wrong. Honestly, being honest with you, Grace, I don't enjoy it.
Mhm.
I don't enjoy it, but I get to do more ownership of it more and more,
Mm.
and that shows results.
Yeah. That is really good advice. I think there's a lot of like supporting evidence for that kind of mentality.
Yeah,
People say like, oh, like I don't know, this is just something I'm learning recently, but they're like, oh, people sort of categorize the past and present and future as these separate sort of
yeah,
things,
yeah,
but in but actually like our subconscious doesn't know the difference between what is past and present and future, meaning if we decide that the future is whatever we want it to be and then we live it that way, then it's like living your present. And sometimes reality does catch up to that sort of
right.
status. It's really fascinating stuff, but I think that's in line with what your mentor advised you on, and I think that's really really helpful because it changes your perspective, right? It's like, oh, like I booked this, it's almost like you go in like with that kind of mind.
Right. Right. Like,
Mm.
you're literally doing a rehearsal before you actually be on set. And that's a lot what casting directors are actually saying. One of the SAG workshop, they were saying that they are looking for someone that one or two potential finalists who we can literally put them on a film set or TV set like tomorrow, and they
Mm-hmm.
will do exactly what we want them
Mm-hmm.
to do, or directors or producers want them to do. That's who
Yeah.
we're looking for. So it's not
Yeah.
just about your craft and your preparation or anything, but it has to be beyond that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
show us oh, this is the character. We see
Mm-hmm.
it and we can call this person tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
and start shooting it. So
Right,
I guess
right.
that my mentor meant that way. Just you're just rehearsing it,
Mm-hmm.
but really show your whole scale
Yeah.
and range and
Yeah.
go from there. But it
Right.
is really hard to let go when you don't get it. It really sucks. It really
Yeah.
sucks that when you know you nailed it, when you know that there's no other, even though let's say if I have to repeat it the same process yourself again, I would
Uh-huh.
not change a bit, but still, when you don't go to the next stage,
Yeah.
it really sucks. It really is.
Mm-mm-mm. Then how do you cope with that? Like, because, that is sort of the plight of the actor. There are so many things that actors do to prepare so that they are like set ready. And then, there's so much letdown. How do you cope with that?
I starting to like literally letting it go and but thinking that, hey, you did your best.
Mm,
If you think you can do it again with the same thing you prepared before, it means that it just was not meant to be.
mm,
And religiously, since I'm a Christian, there's a reason that higher being stop going to the next level because there's something else has to either interfere it or it's being prepared. But
mm-hmm,
because of what you prepare for this process, it's going to make
mm-hmm,
you go even move forward. So
mm,
not having any regrets, letting it go. I'm still practicing it,
mm-hmm,
um, but it's really, again, being honest with you, it's really hard. It's
mm-hmm,
really hard to suck it up and move on. It's easier, to say than done.
mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, yeah, for
but I'm
sure.
just letting it go. Like it is what it is. That's the industry of it, and hopefully whoever got the project, not got the job. I changed it. It's about the
Mm-hmm,
job, right? But I changed the word to project because
uh-huh,
everything is, even now, you and I having this conversation, for me, it's a job.
uh-huh,
It's a being on my job.
mm-hmm,
So auditioning is a job. Callback
mm-hmm,
is a job. So once I sign the contract, that's the project. So I book the project. If I don't book the project, then you know what? It's not meant to be. We move on. And hopefully,
mm,
whoever got that project will do a better job. But a lot of times, and I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't follow those roles that I didn't get and who got it on
yeah,
IMDb, and I shouldn't do that. And oftentimes, I see myself, hey, my take wasn't that bad. It was not too apart from what this person is doing on TV right now.
mm-hmm,
So now we understand it's not just about you or the craft, but something else going on beyond that door that we
mm,
don't really get to understand. We don't need to understand,
mm-hmm,
um, unless you become a producer or showrunners ourselves. But
mm-hmm,
yeah,
yeah,
it's not easy at all
right,
to
right,
coping with it.
yeah. No, I think it's important to sort of like acknowledge that reality or be honest with ourselves because like being an artist is a lot of the times disappointing. It's like a very heartbreaking sort of existence, I think, because we put so much ourselves into the work that we do and there's really no certainty that people will like take time to look at it or give it any
Right,
attention or
right.
it's like that's just how it is. And um something I'm also getting now, like from what you're saying, that you treat every uh screen moment as a job, is like you're also being present in that moment and um
Yeah,
sort of like trying to really stay alert and alive in that moment. And it's like maybe there's something that you get from that, like I don't know, sometimes like when I have to do a bunch of auditions and it's just like endless, I don't know what this is kind of thing, this endless void kind of thing, like I'll just kind of think of it as like, okay, maybe this me doing this is preparing me for something next, like
mm,
I just kind of see it as like I'm carving out another step in my path so
yeah,
that I can move forward a little with a little more ease in the next thing,
yeah,
I mean that
yeah,
sort of helps me a little.
yeah. Agreed, agreed.
Mhm.
And also, if
Mhm.
you think about, even though you booked a project, you on set, and you've been on the set, and now you see these 200, 300 other people moving the same that pieces together. When you
Mhm.
see them, now you realize that, holy shoot, you know, I'm only seeing it as my perspective of just the audition itself, but for the casting directors, producers, showrunners, studios, they also have to think about entire village. That
Mhm.
someone has to prepare 8, 9 hours to shoot your close-up on set, and all these people are working there literally as off
Mhm.
on set to make that you look beautiful and believable and just to be in your character. So
Mhm.
we as an actor, we have to do our part to bring that it game to other department. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't just end at your audition and getting the project, but it goes beyond that. You know, how
Mm-hmm.
you etiquette yourself, you behave yourself on, say, your set etiquette is very important, manners, how you behave
Mm-hmm.
yourself on set is so important because it's all moving piece. There's not one
Mm-hmm.
person. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
like you're saying, the being present is so important.
It is, and it's like it kind of helps you to not take it personally. It's sort of like when you were checking and see like who got the role and seeing that that person's executing it in a way that's not too far from yourself. It's like, oh, then I guess it's hard for me to take this personally because it's like it's almost arbitrary. Like when I talk
Right,
to some other performers, um, they'll be like, "Oh, I was really close to getting this one show and then I didn't." And then they start talking about these reasons, right? Like one executive said
right,
this, a casting agent said that, the director said this, a producer said that, the writer said this, another actor said that, and everybody has a different reason for why this person did not get what they got. And I realized,
right.
oh, nobody knows exactly why this person didn't get this role because
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. And when somebody asks like why didn't I get this, in the moment they just feel like they have to come up with an answer, so they'll just pull
right,
something out of their ass like in that moment, and it's actually not the real reason. I mean, it's one reason, it's like a written down reason or a spoken reason, but
right.
it's so arbitrary that
Yep,
it doesn't even matter like why you didn't get it,
yep.
right?
I'll
Yeah.
give you one like good example, make a long story short. There was a couple of years ago I was the one got selected by director
Mhm.
and director liked me and studio liked me, but it was right in the middle of COVID, like
Mm.
even way worse than now
Mhm.
when this production was starting to coming back. They
Mhm.
really could not afford, and I was in New York at that time. I was not in LA. They could not fly any actor from New York to LA. Not
Mhm.
just there's so much logistics
Yeah.
they had to go beyond that. SAG was not even clear with the COVID protocols. So it was really wild, wild west when it came to
Mhm.
that COVID game.
Yeah.
And so they were even having a hard time just hiring LA-based actor itself.
Mhm.
So having someone from New York to all the way to LA, no matter how much director and producer studio liked this person, it didn't work out. So at the
Mhm.
end of the day, the person on head of the studio did not sign off my paperwork. That
Mhm.
as much as we love Bruce, but we just cannot fly him out. From my perspective, listen, this is a XXX studio. I mean, flying me out for you is like not even lunch money.
Mhm.
So there's something else going on. I thought that I could take a grudge with it, but like
Mm.
you said, it wasn't that. It was clearly was logistic issues that they could not
Right.
fly me out.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And it happened more often than not. It's not about
Mhm.
you. It is
Exactly.
not.
Yeah, and I like what you say when you say like, "Oh, I could have taken a grudge with it," but it's like you're saying that you have a choice in that moment to take it personally and, have a gripe about it, or just be
Right.
like, it's not personal, so let me just move on with my day, but also acknowledge my disappointment, right? Because that's, I think, part of letting go or part of releasing resentment is acknowledging the disappointment, or it is acknowledging the
Agreed.
pain or the hurt. Like
Agreed.
that's something that I really had to come to learn, because like, I mean, especially like Koreans, like, we we tend to hold on to stuff,
Oh yeah.
you know and it's like,
One of the
okay,
best.
yeah, it
We're
sort
so
of
good at it.
drives our passion in a lot of ways, the resentment. But like, I used to think that, oh, I just have to choose not to be angry, or I have to choose not to think about this, or I have to choose not to feel a certain way. But it's like, I don't have a choice. Like, when my emotions are there, I have to acknowledge them. If I try to ignore it, it only festers and gets worse. And I
I agree.
realized, like,
Yeah.
sort of staying with the emotion and being like, okay, like I'm disappointed right now, or I'm really bummed out, or I'm really sad, or I'm really mad about this. If I stay
Hmm.
with that emotion and give it all of my attention for however long it needs, then it just naturally cycles itself out. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I totally agree. I mean, and at the same point, like what you're saying is so true, even when I'm teaching my students. As an actor, our privilege, almost the one of the rightful ownership that we can carry other than producers and other department of this big ship is that we are so attached with emotions and
Mm-hmm.
try not to hide from it or get away from it, but don't be a
Mm-hmm.
slave to it.
Mm.
So once you know how to navigate those options, then our performance becomes so more organic and so truthful that now we can serve whatever the visions of the studios and the writers and fulfilling the audience needs. There's
Mm-hmm.
the hunger for whatever they want from us to, go by the day. Because at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, our goal is to showcase our emotion, our character,
Mm-hmm.
conveying it and resonate with the audience. So
Yeah.
I think we're the only sort of called occupational department that allows to have that our own battle in a way
Mm-hmm.
with our
Mm-hmm.
emotions. And I think we are
Mm.
allowed. So I
Yeah.
totally agree with you that
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't avoid it. You're disappointed, feel it, suck it up, and do what you need to do to, let it out, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, like being a slave to your emotion. I think that's a good way of putting it. Cause so many times like people are that way. Like I used to be that way all the time. And sometimes I still am, you know? Like just
Yeah,
the
we
other
all, yeah.
day,
Oh yeah.
like just like just like yesterday, I was at a show. It's a comedy show and I was hosting and the owner of the venue was like she was like smoking weed and a little, I mean whatever, like people smoke pot, it's fine, I don't judge them for it, but she was like a little distracted and a little underprepared, let's say. Like all she
Mm-hmm.
has to do is like plug in the mic, but she didn't do that. And she was like, "Can you make sure that this is plugged in?" I go and I check, the mic's not plugged in. I don't know where the mic goes to, but I know like this is like the plug. And I was like, "Oh, like the mic's not plugged in." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And she's like looking for some wire when I'm holding it, like right there. And I was like, "Oh, this is it." And she was like, "Okay, well then can you help me?" Like she like snapped, like had this moment of like rage that came out of left field that was like, unnecessary, inappropriate,
Right.
like all the things, right? But I had just this moment of like I could either make this a bigger moment or
Mm-hmm.
I could just make fun of her when I get on stage. And I chose
Mm.
to make fun of her when I get up on stage because I'm
There
hosting,
you go.
like
There you go.
so she figures it out, plugs it in, I get up on stage and like because she had like barked at me, my irritation is up. Like my guard is up, my red light is on, like
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's not a state I want to get up on stage with, especially a comedy show that I'm hosting, right? Because the
Yeah.
host sets the
Yeah.
tone. And I get up
Absolutely.
on stage and I'm like, I need to talk myself down because if I just keep going through this like this and it's not going to be fun for anybody. So I
Right.
just make fun of her. I just like made fun of her. I was like, "Oh, isn't it funny when like the venue owner like snaps at the host right before they get up on stage? Like what a way to prepare them for an excellent show, huh?" Like, and then I just started talking about like womanhood and how hard it is to be a woman. And then I started making fun of her again for that, but kind of being like, well, I understand why a woman has those moments. It makes sense why, but it's
Mm,
still
mm,
fucked up. And, like, so anyway, like that helped. It helped a lot because otherwise I know myself, right? Otherwise this thing would have been like in my head the whole night and I would not have been able to like enjoy the rest of the evening. I wouldn't have been able to enjoy other people's sets. I wouldn't have been able to like socialize, you know.
mm,
Like it just would have
mm,
been this nagging irritation and I just would have been in a lousy mood. And I was just
mm,
like,
mm,
I
mm.
have to I have to give myself something
Right.
to process what had just happened. And I was like, well, luckily the stage is right here. I'm hosting. I have a mic, you know. I'm
You
gonna make
owned it.
fun of her.
Right.
Yeah.
How did she react to it?
She laughed, and then later she like apologized. You know, later she apologized to me, and she's like, "Oh, it's because I'm high," and I'm like, being high is not an excuse. Like
No.
personally, like drunk or high is never an excuse to misbehave, and it's like whatever. But I was just like, it's fine. Like I was like, I don't like being talked to that way before I go up on stage, so I just wanted to clarify that. And she's like, "Oh, okay. Like I'm sorry." I was like, "It's fine."
Right.
And
It's
we
such a
just left it
great
at that.
example. Such a
Yeah.
great example about, being able to make choices.
Mm,
Acting is all about making choices. You know that. I mean, we have millions different choices to tackle one scene, and that's what
right.
it brings us to either yes or no. But when you make a choice, make a bold choices, and
Mhm.
don't excuse yourself for making the bold choices, and then stand up for it and stand by it. And it could be a wrong
Mm,
choice, but I'd rather make a wrong bold choice than no choice and
mm,
doing a mediocre and hand in same thing. Because believe it or not, as you know, let's say 20 actors hand in their self tape, probably 16 actors will do same thing over
mhm,
and over and over what's on the page. And those rest of four actors who went out
mhm.
of the way made a bold choice, still within
Right.
the context of the self tape, the
Mm,
material will probably either be seen or at
mhm,
least go to next callback.
mm,
So you made a choice that night. Yeah, you could make a bigger, bigger than that, or but you became you made the choice to become a better, bigger person, and then you just took ownership of the stage. And kudos, kudos to you. And then I appreciate you that you did that. And that's what I'm talking about, making a bold choices. It's all about making
mhm.
choices.
Yeah. How do you sort of like know sort of or gauge that limit then? It's like I'm about to make a bold choice. Like, how do you know that like this is too much or this is too far out from the thing or this is just right? Like how do you do
My,
that?
I mean, there's no definite answer but from just my own perspective, how I
Mm,
normally tackle these days, and
mhm.
what I suggest to my students is put yourself in audience shoe
Mm,
that if you make them feel very uncomfortable,
mhm.
of course, some exception to some of the very, outrageous shows like who really require that outside of the box and really push the limit. But normally there are formula, like how you know so much about K-dramas. We have a formulas. The writers write about. There's methodology behind it.
Mhm.
Same thing with the acting. There are things that you shouldn't go too much above it to make yourself like, what is she or what is he doing? Oh my God, that's not really it. And it can be just thrown out, well, almost thrown off the casting directors when I mean, wasting their time to watching it. So it's
Mhm.
really that borderline that you feel like you review it before
Mhm.
you hand it in and saying,
Mhm.
oh, I feel uncomfortable by watching it, or show to your family member or
Mhm.
whoever, just let them watch it. And if they oh, okay. Or do you buy it? Does it
Mhm.
look real to you? I mean, is it
Mhm.
believable? So believable or believability, for what of my word,
Mm,
it's what I'm going for. They're trustworthy. And do I
yeah.
believe this person as that who they are looking for?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
if the answer is yes, then I go
Mhm.
for it. But like you said, you
Mm,
shouldn't go too much of it. When
mhm.
I
Mhm.
review a self-tape exercise from my students, some
Mhm.
of them they go way too far, and I have like no time out. Like, but
Mhm.
I always ask them, why did you make that choice
Mhm.
to go that bold? A lot of
Right.
times they don't know. They don't know why,
Ah,
and they became
okay.
this slave to their emotions. because they were
Mm-hmm.
so into the work. And you
Mm-hmm.
really have to have checks and balance
Yeah.
to it.
Right. You kind of have to be able to justify why you made that choice. You got to
Absolutely.
know. Mm,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think
You have to
that's
be
important.
explained. You have to
Yeah.
sometimes they ask you, directors
They
ask
do.
you,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, why did you go with that approach? And
Yeah.
how do you reading this material? And you should be
Mm-hmm.
able to answer it precisely and with details, but with the confidence. You just
Yeah.
cannot mumbo jumbo and say, "Oh well, I don't know." It just feel like not a good start to talking. This is what I
Yeah.
believe, how I go with it. My backstory is this, so this is what I'm taking it.
Right.
Some
Right.
directors say, "I love it, but can we try this way?" Absolutely. Be able to
Yeah.
adopt it, move on. Again, making a choice like that. Because as you
Yeah.
know, Hollywood is all about cutthroat. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
don't give you time to think about it. You give them a
Mm-hmm.
different direction, they have to able to take it, adopt it, calculate it, execute it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, so it is tough. It is very
Yeah.
tough. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does ask a lot from a performer. Oftentimes people think that acting is as simple as just reading the script, memorizing the lines, and then showing up. And yeah, to an extent, that is true.
To
To
an
some
extent,
extent,
yeah.
that is true. But
Yeah.
it's also like how much work you put in as an actor does set you apart from other people. Like
Absolutely.
I was listening to how Jack Nicholson prepares for his
Uh-huh.
roles, and he works all night. Like after he gets off set that day, preparing for the next day shoot, he works all night. He writes out all these different lines that he would
The
improvise in,
the
all
variations,
different
yeah.
kinds. Yeah,
Yeah.
variations or adds. It's almost like a tag. Like in comedy, we have
Mm-mm-mm.
this phrase like tag. Like you say a punchline, and then there's a follow up to that punchline that supports it or takes it further. Tag, 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 tag. It's like
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
that. Like Jack Nicholson will say one line, and then he'll add a tag, like another line to
Ah.
make that line even more aggressive or
Uh-huh.
make his character more sinister or more intense. Like he'll add another tag, another tag, another tag. So he just like writes that all night, and depending on the director that he's working with, like in this instance it was with Martin Scorsese on The Departed, and Martin Scorsese kind of lets the camera roll and lets actors
Right.
do whatever they want. And
Right.
Jack Nicholson was just like, he had so many lines. And, Scorsese has an option to pick what he wants to put into the film when he's editing.
Right.
And
Right.
he ends up using a lot of what Nicholson does. And I was like, this is sort of like what sets apart like a mastered actor versus just somebody who
Mm-hmm.
shows up, in
Mm-hmm.
that they're so committed to their role. I think commitment is another huge thing. They're committed to their role. You know, they really like really want to understand their character to the fullest extent, really become that character and have something ready to go.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of
That is
work, a
great
lot of prep.
example. The one of the his show and claimed show HBO Max we talked about the flight attendant, and
Mhm.
season two I was able to come back and one of the characters and Kaylee Cuoco who was also by the way queen of the one of the comedy,
Mhm.
and when I saw her to how she worked. It was
Mhm.
similar to what you just explained about Jack Nicholson's approach.
Mhm.
She literally, and this is my true testimony, that she actually shot a few words, a few sentences, 8 different ways. So she was giving choice for the editors and showrunners to pick whatever the version of the variation works for that exact moment.
Mhm.
And I'm like, and she prepared. Her script was like you said was I think it was now I know what that tag because she's also a comedian. That's why she
Mhm.
built a career with. It looks now that I understand there was a tag, and there was a
Mhm.
long. It was just 2 sentences,
Mhm.
but there was almost like she was getting ready for a law degree. exam.
Mhm.
Her
Mhm.
script was all the filled with the scribbles and writings and everything, notes and
Mhm.
the post notes. And then she went on two sentences, completely different way. Just watching that is like going through another year of acting school. Like
Mm.
I didn't know she could, or anyone could even come up with that sentences with that emotions or that way of explaining it, that variation. Like, oh wow, like that's what makes her Kelly Cuoco, like
Mhm.
in Hollywood,
Mm.
and that commitment that I learned just right next to her.
Mhm.
Now I'm using it to my own, again, going back to auditions, I do that all different variations and
Mm.
still shoot all that and then pick best two and then send it out to casting directors and hoping that they will be on the same aligned with my vision and their vision will be the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, what you're saying is obviously it's a great example of taking ownership,
Mhm.
even Jack Nicholson level,
Mhm.
but at the
Yeah.
same time commitment to your craft.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of actors do that, and they like a lot of the times, like just the writer or director will get most of the credit. Usually the director gets most of the credit.
Yeah.
For television, the
Yeah.
writer will get most of the credit, but like actors do a whole lot of writing. I think that's what people forget. Um like Bruce Dern is another example. There's so many moments in cinema and roles that he's taken where he just says something based on his character's subconscious, and it just
Uh-huh.
comes up. Like
It
it
comes
just
up,
makes
right.
this it just comes up, and it's
Right.
like almost like a spiritual moment. It just comes up, and
Right.
then everybody's like, oh, that was like stunning, and then they keep that in. And he like
Yeah.
gave it a name. He calls it Dernsey. He was like,
Guernsey. Okay.
he calls
Okay.
it a Derns. He's like, that was a Dernsey. Like they're like, oh, I love
Yeah.
that line in that movie, and he's like, that was a
Oh,
Dernsey.
the Guernsey.
Like
Okay.
he just like goes into the space, cameras rolling, and it's time for him to deliver his line, and he just like lets the spirit move him, and then he says the line that comes to him,
Wow.
and he's like, that's a Dernsey. And it's like
Guernsey. Right.
so like the industry is aware of it, that this is something that Bruce Stern is capable of, and they kind of wait
Mm-mm-mm.
for him to have those moments. And it's like I love that
Wow.
approach to creativity in a way, because it comes with so much trust. And to me, trust equals faith. And it's like, not only does Bruce Dern have this faith in himself and his subconscious, or
Right.
his connection to the divine or what have you, but it's like the whole set does. That whole entire set has that trust.
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
like such a fascinating process. Like, have you seen that film Nebraska?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
You know the
Yeah.
moment when they visit the old man's like childhood home, and he's in his childhood bedroom, like the
Yep.
father's
Yep.
childhood bedroom,
Yep.
and then the mother is like, "Oh, this is where, your father used to sleep, and this is where his brother David used to
Uh-huh.
sleep."
Uh-huh.
And then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
David died. And then the son asks Bruce Dern's character like, "Oh, dad, is that true?" And
Mm-hmm.
then Bruce Dern's Dernsey moment was he says, "I was there," which is like such a simple line, but it's like
But yeah.
so perfect to his character, because he's like a serious old grouch who doesn't want to connect to his emotional side, but this
Right.
trauma of like having a dead brother in the same room as him as a child is
Mm.
like
Mm.
it's a foundation to a person's whole existence almost.
Right. Right.
And he doesn't get overly emotional about it. He doesn't open up about it at all. He just says one line that is so like definitive of who he is, but still
Yeah.
vulnerable. And he just
Right.
says, "I was there."
Was there.
And that was a
So
Dernsey.
that
He's like, "Oh,
wasn't that was so that's Guernsey. So that wasn't there in the first place.
that
Oh,
was
okay.
not in the
That's something I
script.
learned today. Okay. I
That
thought that
was
was
not
he just said it
no.
because it was written.
No.
Ah.
That was not written. So like they give they give Bruce Dern that space to
Of
work in
course. I mean,
that way.
he earned it obviously. So
Yeah,
he's a
I mean,
phenomenal. It's a
he's Bruce
phenomenal,
Dern.
phenomenal actor.
Like the whole
And
family, Laura
of
Dern and
course,
like.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
okay, yeah, like I love this whole conversation. I want to like talk about one more thing, and then we'll get into flashcard questions, which I do in all of my podcast episodes. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I wanted to ask about like um like you're somebody who has faith, like you practice spirituality or
Mhm.
like religion, whatever you want to call it. But like it's very common for like Korean Americans to uh be Christians,
Yeah,
especially in the US. And um like I'm just curious like how you made your faith more personal to you, like a more like we're talking about choices here, like
right,
since
right.
when did your faith become a personal choice as opposed to just you kind of going to church with your parents or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in what we call mother's womb. So when I was born, I was already, baptized in church, going to church. As long as I can remember, the only thing that religious experience I had was always related to church.
Mhm.
But it was not until my adulthood, like even after 30s,
Mhm.
that, going to Korean church or American church, playing with the bands and, church
Mhm.
teaching Sunday schools, that's all great. But at the same time, when your prayers starting to happening with the evidence and things are really happening the way you
Mhm.
prayed,
Mhm.
um more one more than once, twice.
Mhm.
So I swear to you on this podcast, 2019 I had a 25 prayers
Mm.
that January 1st I wrote down, very detailed,
Mm.
sometime even like, please, get me a new car, something like
Mm.
that.
Mm.
Out of 25 prayer
Mm.
requests,
Mm.
19 of them came true when the
Mm.
year ended.
Mm.
So for me, how the process course is, no, no, shouldn't can to talk about too detail, but everything how it happened,
Mhm.
it's only I call miracle.
Mm. Mm.
So once you believe that, um, that for me, that the man upstairs listens to
Mhm.
my prayer and my
Mhm.
request, it becomes
Mhm.
very personal
Mm.
and it becomes almost addictive.
Mhm.
That almost I'm nagging like a little kid. I want
Mm.
this. I want this. I want this. After all, if you cannot do that for me, who else can? Isn't that what you're
Mhm.
there for, in a way?
Mm. 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 Mm.
So it wasn't too long that it really became daily practice and conversation my own time. Even
Mm.
sometimes I do it when I'm in the shower or in my gym, and I
Mhm.
just put my hands up there and say, Lord, I want this right now, and please make it happen for me because I know. But you've done it more than once, not even that one single year, but over and over and over. You are doing it to me right now. So please, but if this
Mhm.
is not it, show me bigger one, show me better way. So yeah. So right now, if
Mm.
anyone asks me, what is your relationship between me and my man upstairs? It is probably the tightest ever been since when I was
Mm.
born until now.
Mhm.
Um, I wouldn't be here without him, without
Mhm.
his grace, his blessings, that he's real, that his
Mhm.
presence is real,
Mhm.
his existence is real.
Mhm.
And he's been repeatedly showing me that I'm listening to your prayers. And here are the proofs.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah.
makes me a better person. So
Mhm. Like when you offer prayer, like do you have like a specific ritual or is it just like you said, like you just do it whenever you have a moment to yourself, like a private
I
moment, then
write
you
it
speak?
down on
Mm.
my phone.
Mhm.
So I do general prayers and then I go into specific prayers, itemized. I just actually read it on my
Mhm.
phone. I just
Yeah.
read it.
Yeah.
And then I do that every day.
Mm,
You know, anything from our, health, from all my family members,
mhm,
the one I know, well, including you, like, good friends,
mhm,
make sure they protect from COVID. But I go into more detail, like I
mhm,
become very selfish. My
mhm,
career, my
mhm,
projects, what who I want to work with, which show I
mhm,
want to work with, all that I write it down and I
mhm.
just read it out loud. That's
Mm.
how I do it.
I really like that. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for
Um,
letting me sharing it. So,
yeah, of course. I want to get into flashcard questions and then we'll wrap up.
yay.
So
All
I
right.
do this on all of my podcast episodes. The show I'm going to talk about today is called Another Miss O. It is a K drama that came out a few years ago, not too long ago, about 6 years ago. It's
Uh-huh.
written by the same woman who wrote My Mister. She also wrote My Liberation Notes, and this is a yeah, really interesting, bizarre kind of show. But anyway, I'm gonna ask you questions based on scenes from the show, and you just
Right.
answer like, what would you do if you were this character in this
Okay.
situation? You just
Okay.
improvise. It's
All
just
right.
supposed to be fun. Okay, so let's say you're a woman named Oh Hae-young. You
Uh-huh.
come to a cafe to meet somebody that your friend wants to introduce you to.
Okay.
But as you're entering the cafe, a man is rushing out and you hit your face against his arm and you end up with sankopi and you're just bleeding out of your face.
Oh
What do you
yeah.
do?
Okay. I will. I'm gonna. I'll first look at him with. You just. What are you doing? You couldn't see me. I'm sure I'm so pretty and very attractive coming in with. You couldn't see me, and what do you have to rush out like that? I want you to apologize,
Mm,
unless he didn't already.
mm,
Um, and I'm gonna ask him to offer any kind of, I don't know, handkerchief, whatever he has, you know,
mm-hmm,
pocket, square.
mm-hmm,
Dude, what have you done to my face? I'm here to have
mm-hmm,
a very important meeting. But a
mm.
lot of time, that's the guy I was supposed to meet. I don't know. Yeah.
It was the
So
guy.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna confront that he's you know, careless act.
Okay. You'll just call him out on it. Okay. All
I'm
right.
gonna
Let's
call him out on
say
it. Yeah.
now, let's say now you're a man named Park Do-young. Okay. You're a
Mm-hmm.
man. You work as a sound recordist. That's your job. Okay.
Yep.
You keep having these like visions of the future. They just like come to you in flashes. You see the future in small
Yep.
flashes, and in those
Yep.
flashes you keep seeing the same woman's face over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this woman that you accidentally bumped into and gave that nosebleed, Oh Hae-young.
Mm.
Also, this woman, Oh Hae-young, she has the same name as your ex-fiance, Oh Hae-young, who stood you up
Mm.
on the day of your wedding. She didn't show
Mm.
up to the wedding.
Mm.
You want to know what the hell's going on, but you can't
Mm.
explain it to anybody because you don't
Mm.
want to sound crazy. What do you do?
Yeah. I will look for that woman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these days, probably if I know the name, do I know that the lady in my vision is also Ohayon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I know
Yeah,
her
because
name.
you bumped into her.
Right, right. So I will see the connection because
Mm,
I'm a heavy believer in this, not a superstition but science.
mm-hmm.
So I am going to, if it's more than once, twice, three times, I know that I hate the name,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't then let the name cloud my destiny with this potentially could be something. So I
Mm,
think I will look for her. Not only I
mm,
want to apologize that I was so rushed out and made her nosebleed like that, but to
mm-hmm.
make up to her and have a conversation. I want to know where this is. See if we can
Mm.
dance. I would do
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Got it. Okay. All right. Let's say you're Haeyoung now. You're that young
Yeah.
lady, okay?
Yeah.
Since you were in high school, you were
Mm,
bullied and mistreated because you were
mm,
secondary to the so-called pretty Oh Hae-young. All right.
yeah.
She's
Yeah.
not only more beautiful, but she really gets high grades and all the boys loved her so much.
Hmm.
And now you're an adult and you're working an office job. That pretty Oh Young from high school, she's now your boss at work.
Hmm.
And when she gets a flower delivery sent to her office, they end up on your desk by accident. It's the same
Yeah.
thing that used to happen to you back in high school. What do you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna accept it as a faith, but at the same time, I will find my own the it that separates me from the other Ohio, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna keep honing that area, and I'm
Mm,
gonna find how I can go past her
mm,
than being, again, keep using the slave today, but the slave to this weird faith of say having the same name and same school and now same job. It's got to be a reason to it, but I'm
mm-hmm.
gonna make a best out of it, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna suck it up at the same time. This is a reality. Because I cannot change our names, but I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
change my faith with the future.
Okay. Mm,
Yeah,
got it. Figure out a way
I'm
to
not
set
gonna be a
yourself apart.
victim. Yeah, I'm not gonna be a victim anymore.
Okay.
But doesn't mean I'm not gonna, I don't want to be the instigator for any, unfortunate incidents in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Okay.
I'm not gonna let it ruin it.
Yeah. Right. Kind of take control of what you can. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say you're Young again.
Mm.
It's the it's the day before your wedding. Okay.
Mm.
Your fiance tells you that he wants to break up with you because he
Day
doesn't
before.
really the day before. And he
Mm.
says he doesn't really love you as much as he thought he did. And you
Mm.
ask him why. And he says
Mm.
it's because he doesn't like watching you eat anymore. What do you do?
I'm gonna ask him to go fuck yourself. Marrying me
Right.
tomorrow is your least concern. If the how you perceive me right now, the day before, night before our wedding, guess what, honey? Go fuck yourself.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
yeah, that's
cool.
how
Yeah.
I would say it. No, that's not cool at all. Well, whoever the asshole is, get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say you're Young, okay? You
Mm.
move out of your parents' house to a really
Mm.
tiny room attached to a bigger house. And there's this
Mm.
small door that connects directly to that sound recorder's Park Do-young's room. It's like one
Yeah.
door, you go, it's his room. And he works as a sound recordist, as we said. And one of his habits is that he leaves the recorder on whenever he leaves the house. So
Mm.
one day you're at home in your room talking to yourself, saying how much you like Park Do Young and how much you miss him, and you're
Yeah. Yeah.
bored and you want to hang out with him. You're
Yeah.
saying all this stuff to yourself. You find out that your voice got recorded in his machine and he heard it.
Oh.
What do you
Uh.
do?
I'm gonna. If I like the guy, I'm going to. If I know that's been recorded, I'm just gonna use it as my advantage. I'm gonna let him keep recording more and more, so he knows that I really like him. Because I know I can erase that.
Mm,
So I'm gonna let him know. Or if I don't like that guy, and I'm
mm,
gonna let him record something that is so turning him off
mm,
that he will not record me anymore. Some weird
mm,
stuff going on, some like I don't know, some budang stuff that one
mm-hmm,
of those things at home, like I
mm-hmm,
do some weird ritual with
mm-hmm,
cats and birds and
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
pig shit and all that.
mm-hmm.
That he's gonna be like,
Okay.
who is she? So I
Wow.
will I will
Okay.
use the advantage, take advantage of that recording situation.
I like that. It's a very
Yeah,
creative
yeah,
decision making. Okay. All right, last
yeah,
question.
yeah.
Let's say you're Young again, okay?
Mm,
You and Park Do Young are
mm,
dating now. Okay, you guys
mm.
are in love. Okay,
Okay.
you find out that the reason why your fiance dumped you the day before your wedding is because his company went bankrupt and he had to go to prison for a while due to fraud charges.
Ah, yeah.
You also find out that the reason why his company went bankrupt is because a major investor pulled out of the deal last minute because
Mm,
Park
mm,
Do Young asked him to. This is because Park Do Young thought that you were the pretty Oh Hae-young that dumped
Mm,
him on the day of his
mm,
wedding. And he
mm-hmm,
wanted to get revenge on that Oh Hae-young who he knew was getting married the next day. He wanted to ruin
mm,
her wedding, just like she
mm.
ruined his wedding. But you were the wrong one. What do you
Right.
do?
So we are both the victims.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask him to have Guernsey moment to come up with our own shit to fuck everyone up,
Oh
both
wow.
sides,
Oh my
pay for
gosh.
what they've done, even though that's why
But
we're
but to
together.
clarify, Park Do-young is the one who ruined your wedding.
Oh, right, he's the one who ruined my wedding.
Yeah, he told your
Dude,
fiance's investor to pull out of the company. And then your fiance went bankrupt and went to prison. That's why your fiance said to you he doesn't want to marry you. He was lying to you. So Park
I'm
Do-young
gonna
is the
say,
reason. Yeah.
I'm gonna say, bye.
You're just gonna break up with him? Even though you're in
Yeah,
love with him?
bye. No, bye.
Wow. That's it, huh?
Yeah, that's it. Because if that's the whole story,
Yeah.
but I wanna ask him what's real and what's not.
Mm.
What is this love is all about? A person like that could ruin that, can fall in love with me. So I want to know what is up to what is real and what is sort of not or else. And
Mm-hmm.
based on that, I'm gonna say bye or
What is
yeah.
that? What? What
I'm
is it?
gonna I'll be keep watching. You be careful.
Okay.
Because I got fucked once. Somebody
Oh
told
yeah.
me like, yeah. No, I
Mm.
mean that. Oh, young, yeah, not me.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, it sucks when it happens. It sucks when somebody breaks up with you like that.
it's hey, it's karma. What goes around comes around. So
Very good. It was a
it is,
pleasure
yeah.
talking to you, Bruce. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.